Okay, lights, camera, action. Let me know whether you can see and hear me because it is the usual annual New Year's Eve live stream, which I have put in place to just basically hang out with people. And for the people who don't want to go out and get drunk and pick up sleazy people of the complementary gender and sleep with them, it's a nice way to hang out and just talk about movies and talk about the year and talk about our aspirations for the year in future and all that jazz. So, Dick, hi everybody who's on the chat already. Dick, Luna and Jill are a bit freaked out by the fireworks. They've already been going off. So we're trying to do what we can to keep them calm. I think Jill's hiding somewhere in this room. And if she's not, she's just left this room. And Luna is hiding somewhere. We're taking care of them. We're doing everything we can to keep them calm. But of course, those concussive blasts from neighborhood fireworks, which are, by the way, illegal, is really upsetting them. Thanks for that, Peter. I'm glad that's coming through. Middle-aged geek guy says, I like biscuits, but these are round lollies that have chocolate inside and crispy orange coating. Yeah, hi, Bented. Hi, everybody. D. Lee, Jaron, everybody I've missed out. By the way, super chats are available. And in order to fortify myself, hi, Lee. In order to fortify myself, I've got a Boss coffee here, one of the ones that doesn't have milk or sugar in it. Hi, Evil Pixie. Hi, James. Yeah, so basically I'm fortifying myself with that because it is quite late here. But yeah, we all know it's been a wild and weird year. I won't go into the politics of it, but you know what I mean. It's been unexpectedly, what the fuck, pretty much. But yeah, but for movies, it's been fantastic. There have been some really, really strong films released in 2024. And I've been fortunate enough to have the Australian Film Critics Association pass, so I can go and see more of them than I would otherwise. And I've really learnt a lot more about cinema this year than I've ever learned before. Hi, Keith. How's things up in Yorkshire? Yeah. So actually, I just finished some Yorkshire tea this evening while I was watching movies because we've got a big box of Yorkshire tea, Keith. Hi, Marcus. How you doing up there in Scotland? A place we love. We've been there once 20 years ago, but we do love Scotland. And I've been known to occasionally have an iron brew. But yeah, weird and wonderful year. I actually hit a lot of films this year. The tally I got up to on my films, he said, bringing up the letterboxd, which is the only reliable way I have of determining how many I've seen. 389 movies, which is pretty good. I've got letterboxd lists for the last 10 years, and this one's fairly up there. James says his ancestry is Scottish, lovely place. And Heather says, yeah, look, haggis kicks ass. Haggis I like black pudding, all that kind of stuff. Keith says, I'll get my apology in early, like Janet Lee and Psycho. I'm not going to be around for the first hour. That's okay, Keith. Anytime you can spend with us is great. Anytime any of you can spend with us. I know on this clay and granite planet, everybody's in a different time zone. Everybody's on a different sleep cycle. Even the people like Heather, who is in Perth. She's 3 hours apart from us at the moment on the other side of the country.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to show what Jaffas are?
Okay, I've got to show what Jaffas are. These are Jaffas. Hang on. And inside the chocolate.
We didn't have that one.
Thank you. I was going to have that one. James says I managed 20-something films, which is better than watching one last year. Started to come out of the viewing slump. 10:30 where Angela is. Hi, Angela. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty much what I do. And it's pretty much my business. So if I'm watching a lot of movies, it's not a flex necessarily. It's just a way of me keeping score. And I think one of the things I did this year that I kind of like is I'm seeing films outside my comfort zone. I mean, I was anxious to see things like The Substance, and I love that. And a lot of the movies that I'm being sent to review from Umbrella and Imprint are films that I might not otherwise take a look at. Yeah, Heather says, Collie, she's in Collie at the moment. D. Lee says, our annual sneak peek of the new year for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere may not be as crap as it could be. I think, whether 2025 turns out to be a shitstorm or not, what we can do, and we're all just individual people. We don't have the resources of a billionaire. But what we can do is we can try to keep around us a sane and happier than it would be environment. We can look after each other. We can support each other. We can support the aspirations and dreams of one another. And I think that's kind of important too. And it's one of the things I wanted to do with the channel. I wanted to, what do they say, hold space for people who need help and who need just that little bit of support and who need encouragement and who need to know that people care. And I think outside of doing all the movie stuff, I think that's an important thing for the channel to do. And I'm happy for it to be a safe space for diverse people. And I know there are a lot of LGBTQIA plus people who follow this channel. And this is a safe space for you. If anybody attacks you in a comment or on a chat or anything like that from this channel, I will cast them into the shadow realm, to use that term from Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'm happy to do that. Lee says, I'm right with you, Terry. That's why I ran as a progressive in the recent UK general election. Good, Lee. I'm glad that people are standing up. I mean, I'm not organised enough to be anything political as far as running for office or anything, but I can support people who do, and I can just express my feelings about things and let people know they're not alone. Keith says, have I seen Lord of the Rings TWRTR, the new anime? Would be interested to know what anyone thinks. I don't like Tolkien. I tried reading Tolkien when I was at school. I tried reading it as an adult. I watched all of the Lord of the Rings movies, but they never really grabbed me. I'm not sure why, but it's one of those areas, and everybody's got them, where it doesn't really grab me, and it's not my thing. I know a lot of people like them. I know a lot of people are incredible fans of them, and I respect the technological and technical expertise that created all of those movies, but it's just not my bag. Heather says, pretty sure Jaffas are an Australian product, so check your imported food shelves. Yeah, what I need to do, if anybody, there's a lot of people here from the UK at the moment. Sorry, England, Scotland, Ireland, and possibly Wales. If anybody wants to send me Twiglets, I want Twiglets. They're a little hard to get here, and I love Twiglets. They're one of my favorite snack foods. So I'm just putting that out there. Middle-aged Geeko says, something other than Star Wars. Yeah, Tolkien I don't dig. Star Wars I don't dig. I've been very tempted to do all the reasons why I don't like Star Wars as a video. But a lot of people I know have heard it before, and a lot of people I know will be pissed off at me if I do. But there's a lot of things I find. Hi, Lee. Yucky da. Wales checking in. My ancestral homeland. 65% of my genome is Welsh. Lee says, I'll see what I can do with the Twiglets. Thank you. Anybody can help me mainline Twiglets, I'm happy. Bandit says, not that I want to affect the stream, but I figured that if you started the Poseidon Adventure at 11:34 p.m., you'll sync with Shelley Winters, Gene Hackman, Ernest Borgnine, and the rest. Yeah, I wonder if you get to like midnight just as the tidal wave hits the boat. That might be fun to do. I saw the Poseidon Adventure at the Plaza Cinema in Sydney, which was it was the only cinema in Sydney where they did Cinerama movies and like really, really widescreen movies. And it was impressive for its time and still holds up. I saw it maybe 10 years ago. It still holds up pretty well as a good adventure film as well. Dick says, we could try with Twiglets, but we didn't have much luck with Lunar and Jules biscuits. Yeah, I think Twiglets might be okay, but anything with meat products rather than yeast extracts is a problem. But yeah, I've gone right off track. We've gone into Tolkien and Twiglets. But yeah, this is my go-to can of coffee around. We get them here, and when they're on special, I pick up a few. That guy on the can of Boss Coffee, by the way, in case people didn't know, is actually William Faulkner, the writer. I don't know why he's on the can of Japanese coffee, but this is the good stuff. Yeah, so the wind's been warm. It hasn't been terribly warm here. And D. Lee is going dark here. A remake of Star Wars directed by Baz Luhrmann starring Johnny Depp will be your must-see list, we know. No, it wouldn't. The interesting thing is there's some stuff come out about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and all that kind of jazz, where they basically, what do they call it? I'm trying to remember the term. AstroTurfed Amber Heard. There was a crisis management company that Depp paid millions of dollars to start a social media tsunami against Amber Heard when they were going through all those court cases. And that was the one that Blake Lively had used against her recently when the director of one of her films chucked the shits at her. So there's a lot of people who are weaponizing social media for very venal personal reasons, particularly when they themselves have been really transgressive. So that's something to watch out for as well. It's horrible that it happens, but it happens. Gamer Trojan, Happy New Year from yesterday's Ireland. Thank you, Gamer Trojan. Keith says, Terry, you know you're getting buried in Twiglets now. I don't mind that. I will guts them down. And the nice thing about Twiglets is I've got this thing where I can't eat too much salt. And Twiglets aren't as salty as a lot of other snacks. And so I can go Twiglets. Darren says, new backdrop. Yeah, the new backdrop's kind of cool. I get them every now and then from Temu. They cost me like $7 to $12 each. And they're on very, very thin cloth. And so to hide all the carnage behind me, I can just chuck another one up there. And it kind of looks okay. Bandad says, Twiglets are kind of like Vegemite pretzels, aren't they? Yeah, they're kind of like that. But I like they're slightly different than my beloved Vegemite. But they're still really rock. So yeah, we've been doing some interesting stuff. I kind of found the best movies to watch on New Year's Eve. And yeah, Poseidon Adventure could probably be at it. But the last couple of days I thought, what do I want to watch on New Year's Eve? That will be really kind of party friendly and light and life affirming and lovely. And so I watched two films today that were that. The first one is one, we're going to stand up and show you the whole shirt. Hang on a sec, Darren. It says, hang on, The Return of Vampire. It's a vampire cat. Thanks, Heather, for the black rock. Angela says, I bought Hanukkah presents from Temu. Today I gave my son a testicle fidget toy. Well, you know, that makes 3 he's got now. James said, I consider watching Can't Stop the Music for once, but I'm better off here, I think. I mean, all valid choices. What I did was I watched Thank God It's Friday, the disco movie where Jeff Goldblum plays a sleazy nightclub owner and Donna Summer sings Last Dance. And I love it. I think it's life-affirming. It's got all these little vignettes of characters. It's a lot of fun. It's growing on me every time I watch it. I like the music in it. But I also like the characters. There's like Marv Gomez, the Leatherman, who constantly dances and is really, really mad for dancing. And a few things I noticed this time around is there is a trans person in the men's toilets shaving her chest and in a kind of low-cut dress. And some people are looking askance at her. And I'm going to say it's her because they don't specify the gender. But Marv goes into the men's room where she's doing that to open the window in the men's room so a couple of teenage girls can come in and dance in the disco. And Marv says, excuse me, lady, I need to get to the window. And rightly identifies this lady by her gender. And there are a couple of other bits in this movie which are really queer friendly for 1978. And I like that because, in a sense, being open and fair and non-phobic about diverse people future-proofs movies like that. They're more in line with contemporary thought for the people who do think on LGBTQIA plus themes. And thank God it's Friday's got a bit of that in it. There's also a couple of guys dancing, and there's a joke stolen from Wunderbar, an old Al Jolson movie where someone says, "Can I cut in?" and then the two guys go off and dance. That kind of stuff is really in this movie, and I like it. There were a lot of queer actors in the movie, not Jeff Goldblum, but a number of other queer actors in the movie. And I kind of like that, but I also like the fact that the good people prevail, and Jeff Goldblum, the sleazy nightclub owner who's trying to seduce some guy's wife, ends up with his Porsche smashed to pieces. So yeah, that's one of my go-to New Year's Eve movies now. Thank God it's Friday is going to be there. The other one is the greatest New Year's Eve movie of all time. You got to guess what it is. I won't tell you right now, but it is the ultimate New Year's Eve movie. I'll just look at the chat now. Damien got a Godzilla -1 for his birthday. Cool. I got the disc for Godzilla -1, and I'm very happy with that. Ben Ed Keith says, I love The Great Race. And Damien said, the cinema was full when I saw Thank God It's Friday in Perth. Yeah, it's underrated. I really think it is. Keith says, every New Year the BBC shows The Heroes of Tillamook. It's on this coming Friday. Yeah, dad movies are really big on holidays. We used to get Guns of Navarone and things like that as well. But yeah, Angela says, live in Adelaide. Apparently we can't stop the music. Can't stop the music. I'm not that fond of it. I've watched it a few times, but for me, it's that kind of meh movies like Xanadu. Lee says, Strange Days always feels like a good New Year's Eve film to me. Strange Days is fantastic. Hi, Franny, how you doing up there? Yeah, and the other film, I'm going to tell you what the other film I did for New Year's Eve is. The ultimate New Year's Eve movie, and I'll give you a history on this one. Back in the day, all the people I knew, well, a lot of people I knew, used to gather in Canberra at a place called Smithfield. Now, the house is called Smithfield, not because it's in Smithfield in Canberra, because there isn't a Smithfield in Canberra. But before the people who lived there moved to Canberra, they lived in a house in Smithfield in Sydney. It's not Dinner for One, Heather, but I did watch that. So the place kept getting called Smithfield even when I moved to Canberra. And twice a year, once in the middle of winter and once at New Year's Eve, there'd be this massive party for a week or more where people would rock in and rock out. You'd park tents in the backyard if you needed to. Everybody would gather around. We communally cook. The party went on for days and days. It was an epic phenomenon. People fell in love. People fell out of love. There were a couple of weddings that were held that weekend. There were mourning for people who had died. There were all sorts of things that happened there. Really intense and crazy. And one of the things people did was gather together and watch a lot of movies. Okay, Friendly's having a bit of a movie season. But yeah, so the ultimate Christmas movie, the ultimate New Year's Eve movie, we found on VHS at the time. It came out, who did it? I think it might have been Premiere or one of those companies. And it was Alan Arkush's Thank God It's Friday, which is set in New Year's Eve in 1983 at a big concert in the Saturn Theatre in Los Angeles. Fantastic casting. This has got Alan Gorwitz, Malcolm McDowell playing a Mick Jagger type character called Reggie Wanker. Daniel Stern's in there, Miles Chapin. It's got Ed Begley Jr. It's got Fabian and Bobby Sherman and all sorts of people in it. Yep, Get Crazy is just the best. And it was unavailable except on VHS for a long time until Kino Lorber put it out a couple of years ago. They had music rights issues with it because Lou Reed's in it apart from anything else. But Get Crazy is one of those great, feel-good, surrealistic movies that is about friendship and music and concerts and all sorts of cool things like that. Dealey says, Private Eye, UK satirical magazine, likes to refer to generic World War II films. They flew to Bruges. Oh, I said the wrong name. No, Get Crazy, definitely my favorite New Year's Eve movie. And I watched it tonight, and I still love it as much as I ever did. Malcolm McDowell was never better in a comedy. And, yeah, there's just so many surreal moments all the way through this film. Yeah, Private Eye. Who's the little round guy who runs Private Eye? Because I watch a lot of stuff he does on YouTube, including their year-end. They have a year-end summary they do up on YouTube as well. Barry says, "Hi, Terry. Malcolm McDowell is brilliant in Get Crazy. Reggie Wanker. Yeah, Reggie Wankers were a great comedy creation. And Malcolm McDowell actually sings on stage, and he was nervous as hell doing it too. But yeah, so I watched Get Crazy and I watched Thank God It's Friday. And to be honest, as a double feature for New Year's Eve, they really slapped. It was life affirming. It was fun. It was full of music and full of people being happy. It was just sweet spot stuff. Ian Hislop, thank you very much, Dealey. I like Ian Hislop a lot. I think he fights the good fight as well as being savagely satirical. And a lot of respect for the guy, and I've got to remember his name better than I just did. But yeah, those two were great together. Watching Thank God It's Friday and Get Crazy today. I want to get Middle-Aged Geek Girl to watch Get Crazy with me at some stage, but she hasn't yet because she's got this thing where if I ask her to watch a movie with me, the answer for a very long time is always no. Yeah, Ian Hislop Lee says has some good interviews done by Politics Show. Yeah, I mean Ian Hislop was so savage, particularly about those post office wrought things where the machines didn't work and people went to jail and people died. That post office scandal. Barry says Mick Jagger should have sued. I think it's an original creation because there's bits of Mick Jagger in there. There's a bits of the Beatles. There's a bits of a whole bunch of different people in Reggie Wanker. And I like that kind of mashup that Malcolm McDowell does with Wanker. Middle-aged Geek Girl says, I hated Casablanca, so I nagged you about that for so long. Well, that's because you've either got some kind of tumor in your brain about Casablanca, or you just haven't watched it enough. Everybody who likes Casablanca, give it a thumbs up on the chat, will you? Just so I can be proved right for a change. But yeah, I mean, it's been a fantastic year for watching cinema. I've talked a lot about the movies that I really liked, and they've been smaller films in a lot of cases, though there have been some large ones. Keith says, I'm not a fan of Casablanca either. Okay, we're going on that track. Well, I'll just let that one go then. James says, I like Casablanca, haven't seen it in years. Lee gives me a thumbs up. Hislop and his magazine are also instrumental in causing the recent resignation of the Archbishop of Canterbury. Cool. Yeah, I mean, magazine got started by Peter Cook, for hell. And it's still going strong. Thank you, Darren and Brandon. But yeah, when the real-life refugees sing La Marseillaise in Casablanca, after Paris in the real world had fallen to the Nazis, there's a passion and a determination and a heart in that scene in Casablanca. That's magic in a bottle for cinema. I love it unashamedly, partly for that juxtaposition of real world trauma and drama and history and politics in a Warner Brothers movie. That stuff just slaps. James says, I don't think there's ever a time we can take Star Crash seriously. There isn't. Dick couldn't find a thumbs up emoji on my phone. Okay, well, that's good enough. And Middle-aged Geek Girl says, I'm promoting bullying behavior on your channel. Unbelievable. I'm not. I was saying that this movie is popular, and I was going on to explain why. Yeah, my eyes really brown. Franny loves Casablanca, even got quoted by Mark Kermode once for pointing out it as an example of a remake being great. So is The Maltese Falcon. That was the third version of that Dashiell Hammett story to be made into a movie in Hollywood. And The Maltese Falcon just hit when it got the right actor and the right director and the right script and all that kind of stuff. Angela says, Sally, the only movie I watched this year was the one you recommended. Which one was it? Yeah, Dealey, Casablanca is a great film. It had Conrad Veidt and it couldn't go wrong. I visited his ashes at the Golders Green Crematorium this year. That's sweet. And Conrad Veidt's also in Thief of Baghdad, which again is a fantastic movie. I'm going to have to revisit Thief of Baghdad in the new year. By the way, that's reminded me. So thanks, everybody. I've got a new letterbox list that I just started for movies I'm going to watch in 2025. I've already put one movie in there because that's the way you open the list. And I'm going to show you what that is then. But if anybody wants to bookmark this little sucker, that's my 2025 letterboxed list. Okay, Angela saw Abigail. Abigail's fun. Damien says, I love Casablanca, Burgard, Laurie, and Bergman, never better. Also, Sydney Greenstreet's in there. God, I love. Hi, Neil. Happy New Year. Just got back to watching the final sun go down over the Indian Ocean here on the slow side of the continent. Yeah, I love Perth. I mean, both middle-aged Google and I love Perth. I also love southern Western Australia. I haven't been there for a quarter of a century or more than a quarter of a century, probably about 30 years. But I want to get back and head down to all the places down there, Margaret River and all the places further south. Friday says, middle-aged geek girl, you could try Barbed Wire instead. Yep, Barbed Wire with Pamela Anderson at her tittiest is a remake of Casablanca. Nice call there, Friday. But yeah, and Pamela Anderson, 2024, really being admired and respected as a serious actress and as a serious person and somebody who is aging gracefully. There's a Criterion Closet video of Pam Anderson going into the Criterion Closet and picking out movies. She has really great taste in film. She's into like French New Wave and shit like that. And so even though I was never a Pamela Anderson fan because I like women to be biodegradable, her taste in movies is chef's kiss good. So a lot of respect to her this year. Lee says, maybe that's an excuse for me to go to Australia this year. My friend Terry wanted some twiggles. I've just popped over with the delivery. I'm fine with that. Just make sure you get an air ticket with the large baggage allowance, Lee. Heather says, what's the end of To Catch the Thief on SBS this morning? Nice film. I just saw it on 4K. I got the 4K cheaply, and it looks great on 4K. It's got HDR, high dynamic range. Yeah, William, I like women to be biodegradable. I'm not having another one of those because that'll wire me for the next 3 days. But I will finish that one. D. says, probably left Germany for the UK and gave a lot of his life savings to the British war effort. Yeah, that was Conrad Veidt. Also, Conrad Veidt had a good reason to as well. His wife was half Jewish. And so they basically had to flee. Movies like Casablanca are full of refugees like that. You've got Peter Lorre, Hungarian guy called Laszlo Lowenstein, who fled the Germans and the Nazis, even though he was a big star in UFA, the German film company. You know, Conrad Veidt there as well. Just so many really good actors. And if you look at wider in Powell and Pressburger stuff, a lot of the actors in Powell and Pressburger movies were refugees from the Nazis. There was an incredible talent move from Europe to America and the UK because of that. getting more fireworks outside the bastards. Brent says, Treasure Films did a great job with the new release of Dawn of the Mummy. Not a great movie, but a fun watch. Okay, cool. I'll keep that one in mind. But yeah, I've got this fascination with that period of time. I love World War II movies that are made before they knew the outcome of World War II. Yeah, they could probably guess any movie made in like 43 to 45. You'd have a pretty good idea the war was coming to an end. But I like it at that pivot point of uncertainty. There's just so many great war films made in that era, like a Matter of Life and Death, and The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, and Went the Day Well, and Casablanca, and all of those films. Conrad Veidt might be pronounced Veidt, not V, says Keith. I apologize for any mispronunciation. Bendad says there's a great video on YouTube from the person who worked on the restoration of To Catch a Thief in 4K. Can't remember any more details. It looks fantastic. I'm very happy I've got a copy of it. It's not my top tier favorite Hitchcock film, but I think it's honest. It's got a kind of moral complexity to it that I like. And the south of France looks fantastic in the 4K. It's one of those movies that I put it in and watched it and thought, yeah, this is the reason I've got 4K. Middle-aged Geek Girl says the headphones work. I didn't hear the fireworks at the time. That's good. Middle-aged Geek Girl, because she is on the spectrum, has a sensitivity to the loud bangs and things with fireworks. So she's wearing headphones to monitor the live stream as a way of partly blocking those out. So I hope it does work. Peter says, fun facts, all the German regulars in Hogan's Heroes were German Jews. Yeah. Werner Kempler and John Banner were German Jews playing Nazis. That happened a lot. And it's just an amazing period in cinematic and in human history where people fled the apocalypse, in a sense, and used their skills and their talents and their trauma in a positive way. Lee says, I am up to date with Star Trek Lower Decks. I thought it was a great ending. I haven't seen it, Lee. I'm watching so many movies now, and I keep finding new things to watch in movies. So I'm not doing a lot of series. The only thing I've watched lately, as far as the series is, I watched Marvel's What If Season 3, and that was good. Marcus says The Spy in Black is a great Palin Pressburger film with Conrad Veidt, set in my neck of the woods. It is. I haven't seen it for a long time, but I remember it being good. Damien said, have I watched The Hitler Gang from John Farrow? Said, yeah, I've mentioned it on the channel. The John Farrow, directed by John Farrow, a set that Imprint put out, has a movie called The Hitler Gang. And it's a movie made during World War II that's got the history of Germany going under Hitler. And they treat it like a criminal gang. It's almost like a film noir about this criminal gang that took over Germany with Hitler at the lead. And taking it from that angle, it's really a powerful film. I'm surprised it's not better known than it is, because it is a fantastic piece of not only wartime propaganda, but looking at the recent history for them of Europe from a different angle. And I really like that film. Keith says Murdersville. Anton Walbrook, brilliant in Queen. Anton Walbrook is such a fantastic actor. I do not, every time I watch The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, I cry when Anton Walbrook does that speech when he's a refugee coming to England from Europe. There's something so honest and raw about that. It really hits me every time. And I can't watch it without tears in my eyes. Friday says, have I tried watching Skeleton Crew? It's a kid's Star Wars show and not terrible like the Ewoks movie. I don't like Star Wars. I mean, at some stage, I'm probably going to have to do something about this on the channel, explaining my reasons, but I really think it's a shallow trough to drink from. Yeah, that's why Mel Brooks takes the mick out of the Nazis. Yeah, and Mel Brooks has got every right to, because he was in the Battle of the Bulge. He was one of those guys that went along with a trench knife and removed mines so soldiers could get through during the Battle of the Bulge. He doesn't talk about it much, but he paid his dues. Gutsy little bugger, Mel Brooks, and all respect to him. He's like Lee Marvin. Lee Marvin, teenager, Marine, Battle of Saipan in the Pacific War. One of the worst meat mincer battles in the Pacific Front in World War II. He fought in that and killed people, and he admitted it, and got shot in the arse and got a Purple Heart for it, and then got shipped back because he was wounded. There are actors like, the people like Mel Brooks and like Lee Marvin who have nothing in this world to prove. They've gone as far as human beings can possibly go and come back and use it to inform their art. Hi, Fire Move 42. Happy New Year. Hi, Cinema Dave. How you doing? Hi to you and Jesse, mate. James says that scene in Colonel Blimp was one of the best speeches in film. I won't disagree with you. It is. It's powerful and it's honest and it's raw, and it comes from lived experience. James says, I had no idea Mel Brooks served in World War II. That's extraordinary. Keith says, not seen Colonel Blimp. I'm definitely going to have to seek it out. You won't be disappointed, Keith. I bet no one has ever referred to Mel Brooks as a gutsy little bugger. Yeah. Mel Brooks yucks it up because obviously that was, nobody goes through that without carrying a burden of trauma. But Mel Brooks talks about his war experience. There's a thing called An Audience with Mel Brooks, which you might find on YouTube, where he talks about that stuff and says things like, after I escaped to Canada and they brought me back, I went to World War II. Well, that kind of thing. Yeah, Middle-aged good girl says that speech in Barbie is important to women, though. Yeah, it's a solid speech too. And again, that's from lived experience. Good speeches in movies come from reality. They don't come from something somebody made up. Ben Ed says Mel Brooks' recent autobiography is a treat as an audiobook. Great to hear him tell his story. Yeah, I mean, when Mel Brooks dies, it's going to be a tragedy. The guy so much good comedy, and not just the big ones. Things like The 12 Chairs is a marvelous comedy. And things like Life Stinks, where he actually critiques capitalism. And Silent Movie is just such fun as well. There's a whole bunch of Mel Brooks stuff out there that doesn't get enough love because the big things, which rightly so, are fantastic, get that love. And even with things like Blazing Saddles, the more you know about classic Westerns, the funnier Blazing Saddles is. If you come in cold, you can still enjoy everything in it. But the more you know about like 40s and 50s Westerns, the more you're going to laugh your guts out watching Blazing Saddles. Damien says, Marvin was great in Hell in the Pacific. That's a good one. Him and Mifune in Hell in the Pacific. Terrific stuff. Lee says, Blazing Saddles opened my eyes to Mel Brooks. Marcus says, I might see New Year with Colonel Blimp. You couldn't, starting your year out with Pal and Pressburger is not a bad thing to do. And I think if you haven't seen them, you might go down a rabbit hole of other things like I Know Where I'm Going. Small film, very female-oriented. And that Canterbury Tale. All those lesser Pal and Pressburger movies are fascinating as well. Each one creates its own universe. And a universe which has a moral core. And I love them for that. They're just fantastic stuff. Dave says, I love Mel Brooks films. High Anxiety is a favorite along with Young Frankenstein. I love High Anxiety. And that bit where Madeline Kahn says, I'm getting my period, as a way of explaining how distressed she is. Nobody did that in movies in the 70s. And Mel Brooks puts it in there. It's just fantastic. The Producers, the musical, the best. I like the first version of Producers. I don't particularly like the adaptation with Matthew Broderick and Uma Thurman in it. But I like the original because it's closer to the bone. FG says, I heard in an interview that Mel Brooks got the idea for Live Stinks when his car broke down in a part of LA in which he thought he was in Calcutta. Yeah. Fireman 42 says, Richard Todd pretty much played himself for the longest day. It was actually at Pegasus Bridge on D-Day. Yeah, and Richard Todd's career would have been a lot better if he was taller, because he was a short little bugger as well. And yeah, I keep wanting to do a trivia quiz, and this is naughty of me, and I don't want anyone to put the answer in the chat, please. One thing I'd do if I ever did a trivia quiz and I wanted to burn my bridges, one of the trivia questions I'd have is, what was the name of the dog in Dam Busters? Now, I don't want any answers on that, but I'm really tempted to want to put that in a trivia quiz at some time because I'm transgressive sometimes. Damien says, I enjoyed Tales of Hoffman. I love Tales of Hoffman. It's got Bobby Helpman in it. The great Robert Helpman, Australian dancer, actor, singer. Middle-aged Giggle says, oops, demonetization. Yeah, I don't want that. Thank you. If I was going to do it on a trivia quiz, I wouldn't do it on the channel because this is my business and I don't really want to burn the bridge. Yeah, I'm not going with that question. But it shows how times have changed. And that's the reason why Peter Jackson was going to remake Dam Busters, but he couldn't really cross that bridge. Friday says there are two answers to the dog question. They redubbed it in the UK. In the version of the movie I've got, Middle-aged Giggle, they didn't change it. And I've got a Blu-ray, an Australian Blu-ray of it. Great movie. I love the movie. I think it does well with the special effects as well. But no. Lee's seen it with the original name. Let's move off that one. It's the same question that it's the reason why white people don't do Pusher Man from Superfly in karaoke. Evil Pixie 96. Last time I was on the BBC, they cut the dog out, which sounds wrong, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it shows that kind of stuff is bad. It's like I think it's why Christmas has got a blackface scene in it, and even though it has been re-released on Blu-ray and 4K recently, people have a real problem with that, and for obvious reasons. Pity about the Dam Busters remake. Peter says the script was going to be written by Stephen Fry. Fry says also why we don't talk about H.P. Lovecraft's cats. And Middle-aged Giggle says the same reason why I stopped playing Grand Theft Auto 5 was too much. Darren says, Sir Stephen Fry is of this birthday. I'll let you know something, Darren. I don't do honorifics. I don't believe in royalty. I don't believe in aristocracy. And I won't ever on this channel call anybody by an honorific given to them by non-democratic means. So I don't do lords, I don't do ladies, I don't do sirs and ladies as a moral thing, because to be honest with you, royalty exists because their ancestors were ruthless psychopaths, and I don't think I want to give that any oxygen. Dan Buster's dog, yeah, I know the answer. Disturbing, absolutely. Lee says, I definitely saw some questionable vinyl records in charity shop yesterday, black and white minstrels. I see them occasionally as well. And it's really weird because I'm on a I'm on a Facebook page, which does movie ads from the past. And in Sydney, I like looking at the movie ads just to see what was on in Sydney when I was a kid. And one of the ads on the newspaper page is for the Black and White Minstrels live show that played in Sydney for a hell of a long time. Darren says, I'm glad I live on a planet with Sue Mick Jagger, like going back to the 60s and explain that one to him. Lee says, SF has recently been apologising for J.K. Rowling. I think I've gone off him. That's a shame because J.K. Rowling is a repugnant human being who hurts trans people by the things she says about them. There's a lot of Harry Potter fans out there that I'm kind of disgusted with because they're, by whatever means, giving money to a woman whose opinions, and they are only opinions, they're not based on fact in any way, are incredibly hurtful, repugnant, and disgusting. And yeah, and the other thing too is Stephen Fry, unfortunately, has been defending Israel in ways that are cruel to Palestinians. Key says, multiple choice question time. Terry, Peter Sellers, was he a great movie star or so, or C, a talent wasted? I think he was a chameleon. Peter Sellers did some great things. There's a movie with Richard Todd in it, oddly enough, where Peter Sellers plays a really brutal gangster incredibly well. He could change into anything he needed to change into. He had that mind. I don't know whether he did it with any great depth, but he did it with a clarity in when he did various kinds of roles. And with it was like he created a whole human being out of it. Whether that was a deeply felt human being, the way we feel for other characters, I don't know. But I think Peter Sellers was one of the great chameleons of cinema and could play a whole bunch of different stuff. He eventually went with the money and followed the money route and followed the comedy thing. But I think he was one of those people that submerged himself into characters and could create characters off the cuff. He did it on talk shows. Just an amazing talent in a certain very specific realm. Fireman 42 says, my favourite quote, Rowling is one bottle of gin from announcing only white people can be women. I don't know about that part, but she's not the kind of person I want to have any time for. Darren says, fair enough, I have so much blocked on social media these days, I'm out of the loop. Never Let Go, that's the Sellers villain. Yeah, thank you, Fireman 42. Never Let Go with Richard Todd. Sellers villain in that is genuinely, deeply creepy. Lee says he's the president of the mental health charity I work for. The more I know about the organisation, the more questionable I find that relationship. Yeah, I mean, it's horrible when people who I have a lot of respect for Stephen Fry in a lot of realms, but there are aspects to what he says publicly and the things he does publicly that I find really problematic, as I do with a number of people. D. Lee says, speaking of Mel Brooks, there's a documentary about 10 years ago called The Last Laugh, looking at whether you can mine humour from the Holocaust and the Nazis. Brooks featured prominently. I think everything is able to be done as a joke. It's where you do it, whether you punch upwards or punch downwards, but everything can be a subject of a joke. And I think punching upwards in a joke, if you're making a joke about something like, say, incest, you better be punching at the perp and not the kid in that joke. I think it can be done. I think it can be done with pretty much anything, as long as the target and the pointy end of the joke is at the criminal. Went very serious there for a moment, didn't I? Lady Pink Panther films were unfunny. Yeah, Damien, they were. But yeah, it was milking the cash cow until it turns into beef jerky, selling the beef jerky and wondering what to do with the bones. Middle-aged girl says, and they cancelled Frankie Boyle for what he says. Frankie Boyle has an incredibly surgical talent for telling jokes that gut people, and he always punches upwards with those guttings, and I love him for that. If you haven't seen Frankie Boyle, I love his stuff because he will never punch downwards in a joke. Hi, Digital Pollution. Happy almost New Year. We've got 11 minutes here until then. Lee says, Being There was a beautiful film. I'm not that in love with it. I think it's a little Forrest Gumpy in the fact that people in that movie mistake diminished mental capacity with wisdom, just like they do in Forrest Gump. And I'm not sure that that sits well with me. But yeah, people can vary. I don't mind that people like Being There. I think it's a well-made film, but it's not my bag. But by the way, after we do the Happy New Year thing, does anybody want my 11 worst films I saw in 2024? Franny says, Mel Brooks explained how he always ridicules Nazis because they can't take it, and it's an effective way of fighting them. Absolutely, Franny. You got to punch those bastards. I mean, both of my grandfathers had a career in the 1940s of killing the bastards. Keith says, Sellers was a wasted talent, according to him. Great promise in the 50s, ultimately didn't fulfill his career. Absolutely love his little 5-minute carrying out in the wrong box in a house overrun by kittens. Yeah. Darren wants to see the worst films, and so does the Ink Spot. Is there more than one of you in the Ink Spot? Because I really like the Ink Spots. James says he's seen in the wrong box is excellent. I kind of like him as one of the villains in Tom Thumb, the George Powell film with Russ Tamblyn. Okay, we're getting a lot of stuff about the worst movies that I saw this year. Let me see what we got left. The Ink Spots are my favorite group. I kind of like the 4 preps as well and the 4 freshmen. Lots of good things there. Brandon says, how do I get in touch with me? I'm searching for a particular movie. You can send me something through YouTube, or if you want to go to @TalksTerry on Twitter, you can do that. Platters are also great. Yeah, absolutely. And, Ink Spots and just so many of those back groups. I'm going to do a bit more about this one. I've got Dai Gothic, a 3-movie set of Japanese supernatural films. And the first movie I'm going to watch in 2025 is going to be this one, The Snow Woman, which is based on an old Japanese legend. D. Lee says, Frankie Boy punches down when he mocked Katie Price's disabled child. He needs calling out for that. If he did that, D. Lee, 100%. Dick says, Carol says, yep, would love to hear the worst movies too. Brandon says, through YouTube, mate, I don't do Twitter. Good night. Okay. Well, then, okay, I'm not sure what that was about. Wrong Box is fabulous. Never understood being there. Loved all the rest of his work. Yeah. I didn't love his Fu Manchu movie, which is one of his last ones. But yeah, there's just, and we've been getting so much cool stuff coming out. I mean, the stuff that Umbrella's bringing out, there's a lot of Asian cinema I knew nothing about that Umbrella's bringing out. There's a lot of Australian small films that Umbrella's bringing out that's really great. It's just we are so wealthy in this. I mean, if you can afford to buy things, of course, or acquire them, there's just such a wealth of films coming out and things that I never knew anything about. Ink Spot says the party is my favorite. I don't like the brown face in the party, but apart from that, it's funny. James says the Dai Gothic box set has me interested. I'll show more of it after the hour. Darren says, is Snow Woman based on the same story as the one in the Quiet End? Yeah. Lafcadio Hearn stories. It's based on that. Raphael says, Happy New Year. Thank you for the great insights and information. At 70 years old, I thought I'd seen it all, but apparently not. Nobody has seen it all, Raphael. And that's the thing. I'm trying to show people the stuff they haven't seen. And obviously we're sharing the love of the stuff we already have seen. But I love the fact that I keep discovering movies from the past I knew nothing about. And yeah, there are times where we think, yeah, I've seen everything. And then a whole realm of films you didn't know about opens up. It might be in a foreign language. It might be an actor in a foreign language you don't know anything about. We're all on this crazy journey and it's just such fun. Bandit says, After the Fox, yeah, and it's got Victor Mature in it as well, making fun of himself. Dilly says, being there's a classic Holy Fool story. I detected a touch of it in Old Boy, oddly enough. Yeah, Old Boy is such a strong film as well. Yeah, I've never seen half of it. There's such a wealth of movies out there. And every time I think, what am I going to talk about on the channel as far as the movie's concerned? I've tapped everything. I've got nothing left in the tank. There's nothing there. And then suddenly a door will open and a ton of stuff will cascade through it. And I'll have a whole bunch of new stuff to talk about on the channel. And that's part of the fun of it. Just, sometimes you think you're not getting anything and then suddenly you get everything. Keith, have a great new year, Keith. And thanks for the support of the channel, mate. Really appreciate it. And stay well, okay? And stay warm. We used to just be getting our hands on stuff in the era of VHS. Yeah, the number of bootleg movies I got on VHS, Heather, was incredible. I used to go to Polyester Books here in Melbourne, and they'd have bootlegs of things you couldn't get otherwise, couldn't get legally in Australia. If you wanted a copy of Deep Throat, you get like a 4th generation copy of Deep Throat on VHS down at Polyester Books, and every couple of years they would get raided by the coppers, and they'd pay their fine and then just hide stuff for a couple of months and then start flogging it again. It's amazing what we put up with. Damien says, my copies of Panic in Year Zero and Yokohama Blue are waiting for me to pick up. Cool. Dick says, getting closer to that time. Happy New Year to you, Sally, and the girls. Thank you. We've got 4 minutes left, Dick, if you can stick around for that. The Moor is the creepiest English language film I've seen in a good while, and genuine folk horror. I'm going to write that one down, unless Middle-Aged Geeko wants to write it for me. Middle-Aged Geeko said, you have a lot more movies to watch if you listen to my recommendations. Yeah, sometimes I do watch them, and then we talk about them. But we've got slightly different tastes, even in horror movies. You like found footage ones, I'm not that keen on them. But that's okay. You took 20 years to watch Casablanca, so you got a bit of time there to make up for. Yeah, Dick says, sticking around to the end, just getting in early. Thank you. And we got 3 minutes left according to this. D. Lee says, oddly enough, I was looking at that Die box set yesterday. I'm looking forward to it, to be honest with you. Coming Home in the Dark is a good New Zealand thriller, says the Ink Spot. Cool. And it says, we now have 4K, and back in the 80s, we were getting certain worst generation VHS Doctor Who's from the UK at the Doctor Who fan club. Yeah, I saw one at a convention once. It was one of those early Doctor Who's about some kind of ice aliens. And you couldn't tell what the bloody thing was because of how bad the VHS was. Middle-Aged Geeko says, I'm colouring. Did I want you to put something? Yeah, just write down the more for me if you could, Middle-Aged Geeko, because I want to try to find a copy of that. Yeah, I do follow some people on YouTube who are doing horror-specific stuff, men and women. And there's some really weird horror movies that come out consistently through the years because horror is incredibly popular. It makes money for the people making the movies, even on low budgets. Horror is the guaranteed Bitcoin of movies these days. Ice Warriors from Mars says Friday. Hi, Captain. How you doing? Found footage shark movie. I think we've all gone momentarily deaf at this juncture. Yeah. We've got less than a minute left according to this. I'm not going to rely on the other TVs that I've got here. I'm going to rely on my computer clock here. So I will tell you when it reaches 2025 here. That sounds so futuristic, doesn't it? 2025 sounds like we should be landing on Mars and stopping robots. But at this stage, we're not. And the only person that's serious about going to Mars is a total bloody nutcase. I think you'll find shark movies are found foot. Ooh, that's bad, Friday. Thank you. Okay, so we're almost there. It's almost the future. And we're getting fireworks outside, which is a serious pain in the ass. Happy New Year, people. It is 2025 here. It's just kicked over now. And there's middle-aged Geeko. Happy New Year, chicken.
Oh, Robbie Williams is on.
Yeah, Robbie Williams is in Sydney.
Happy New Year!
Yeah, Happy New Year from Sydney, says Ink Spot Pop. Yep. And yeah, so it is New Year. Lots of fireworks going on because people can't not break the law. I think I'm falling in love more with drone displays than that. Yeah, so yeah, future doesn't feel a lot different than last year, really, yet. I suppose we've got to give it a go. Happy New Year from Minnesota, said Cap. I love Darren. Wow. Thank you so much for that bump, mate. Did you mean to do that much? Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, Cap, I love Minnesota. I spent 2 weeks in Minnesota in 1998, in Minneapolis mostly. I did go to Red Wing, which sounds a bit menstrual, but it's actually a town, as you know. But yeah, I love Minnesota. I love people in Minnesota as well. Happy New Year to everybody. And I'm going to do my New Year speech now because it's that time of day and time of year. Yeah, Sydney fireworks are going off on TV at the moment over here. I really want us to be optimistic about 2025. It's going to be a tough year for so many people. It's going to be, I mean, we know who our enemies are. We know who the people who want to keep their thumb on our heads and push us down are. We also know the people who stand beside us and stand strong with us in many, many things. The future's tough, and there's so many people who are weaponizing these wonderful technologies we have that enable me to do this channel and to talk to all you about movies and to do all of that stuff. But they're weaponizing it against people who need our help and need our fellowship. And one of the unexpected things about this channel, which I never got with podcasting, I never got it when I did the radio, I never got it with fanzines, is I can be an ally to people who need allies. And I can stand beside people who need me to stand beside them and who need somebody to speak up when arseholes are trying to prevail. And I think what we can do in 2025 and all the years that we have left is to stand beside each other and to show love and respect and care and to listen to people's stories and to listen when people tell us who they are and what they are, whether they're arseholes like Trump and Musk or whether there's some lonely trans kid who just needs somebody to give them some respect. That's how we build our future. That's how we creep our way to utopia. We listen to people who need us to listen to them. We stand up beside the people who need to stand up beside. And we share common humanity and also love of movies. That's what we do. That's who we are. That's what this channel is. And it will always be. So that's the end of my speech. Middle-aged Geek Girl says you can hear the fireworks through the chat. Happy New Year, Gigi Galaxy. And Gigi voted for Harris. I'm sorry you didn't prevail on that. Yeah, we're getting all the fireworks here. I've got the TV muted, so it's not coming from there. It's coming from people in my next street who obviously bought them illegally. And there's going to be a lot of that for a little bit. We'll let it settle down. But yeah, I mean, this channel, I really want it to be a positive thing. And I want it to, not for me, because, I can look after myself. It's nice that the channel is making me a little bit of money. And it's a business. I never knew I'd own a business this late in life. But I really love the fact that we have these technologies to talk to each other. This is a natural progression for me. I started out doing fanzines in the 70s. My first fanzine was 1979. And I did them all the way up until the 21st century. And then I did podcasting in the 21st century. And then I did YouTube, which I started about 10 years later than I should have. But it's all a continuum of sharing passion, sharing love, sharing insights, and listening to what other people think about things as well. Dick says, missed some of the things you said about that. Basically, I'm saying that I'm standing up with people who need us to stand up with them, Dick, and stand beside them and listen to people and listen to the stories and watch more movies that are coming from diverse viewpoints. Things like I saw the TV Globe came out this year, which is a metaphor for the trans experience. That stuff is important for me to learn because you stop learning, you start dying. Robert Lee Meyer says, great speech, short and to the point. I can't wait for all the movies you're going to tell us about in 2025. There's going to be a ton of them, Robert. There's going to be a shit ton. I'm going to try to stretch myself broadly in the genres I talk about. And I hope to learn a lot about movies while I'm doing that. Lee says, you've given me some great recommendations. My pleasure. Yeah, it's old Satan Claus is out there, Jimmy, like they say in The Last Boy Scout. And we really need to look after each other because if we don't, there's not much for us. But I'm going to go and get off that subject and talk about the worst movies I saw this year. So buckle up, kiddies. I'm going to give you these 11. I could have picked a lot more. I could have added things like Madam Web, which I've already spoken of in the channel a lot, and Craven the Hunter. So we'll just take those as accepted, okay? Let me get a bit of water first because I'm getting a little dry. By the way, those Sydney New Year's fireworks are great. I once did fireworks in Sydney and had a big canister rocket that blew up directly over my head when I was there in the North Shore. It felt like I was in the middle of the Blitz. Cab says, love your recent vids on small films. It really provides us with little known treasures. Yeah, I mean, it's easy just to talk about big films because everybody on YouTube is talking about them. But, you know, picking the little grits of the small good stuff out, I find much more rewarding. Gigi says, thanks for recommending these final hours. Loved it. That's a good one too. And the nice thing about it, apart from it being an apocalyptic movie, set in Perth, where Damien and Heather live, it's a movie about a guy finding his best self at the end of the world and making good moral choices in the framework of the world's being destroyed. There's nothing going to save it. And everybody is going mad. And one guy finds his best self in that. Fantastic stuff. Damien says, I brought some stuff due to you. Yep, and I bought some stuff due to you, Damien. It shows on the credit card statements. Yeah, so here we go. I'm going to go with the worst movie. So you don't need to write these ones down because I hope you never watch them. First one's a 2021 American science fiction action film. And I'm reading this off Wikipedia. Directed by Antoine Fuqua, who made those Equalizer movies, which are pretty good. And it's a thing called Infinite, which stars Marky Mark. Chiwetel Ejiofor's in there as well. Basically, it's about people who keep getting reincarnated from previous lives. And somebody wants to stop this. Somebody wants to keep going. It's kind of like a light version of Highlander without the sword fights and without the cool stuff. But Infinite is just ordinary. It's one of those Netflix movies, and Netflix is doing this stuff where you get these mediocre movies coming up. They know they're going to make a shit ton of money out of them because they can put them on every market across the world with some very dodgy dubbing or subtitles. But Mark Wahlberg is interesting in the fact that he has a career. Yep, he's ripped and he looks good with his shirt off. But every character he plays is the same. And I watched that and I don't know why. And the thing is, they put good character actors in these movies with them. Chiwetel Ejiofor is a good character actor. Toby Jones is in this as well. And you get these good character actors that are basically cashing checks in mediocre Netflix films. And they're just crap. So I watched that. Next one I watched is also a Netflix film. which stars one of the most overrated actresses in movies at the moment, Gal Gadot. And it's a thing called Heart of Stone, where she plays the usual super secret agent, pew pew, bang bang, gets betrayed. Great locations. You always get those beautiful swooping shots, shot from drones of incredibly beautiful locations. And the drone will zoom in on a building where you know there are people inside it who are doing spy stuff. And then they cut to a wireframe diagram of the building, and you can see the people inside the wireframe diagram running around shooting things. It's that kind of movie. Happy New Year, Janet. So yeah, Heart of Stone is ordinary. And again, they're putting good actors in the minor roles. Jamie Dornan, who's okay, is in there. Sophie Okonedo is in there as well. BD Wong's in there. Just Glenn Close is in there as well. But basically, it's about just the usual spy shit. And Netflix pumps these things out about 8 times a year. Darren says, if only Hitch had a drone for the start of Psycho. I mean, Darren, I've got no problem with drone usage, but they're used in a cliched way in these movies. It's great that we got technology to have these beautiful swooping shots and not do them with helicopters anymore. But they're all a bit same, and they're all a bit eh. So that one, don't recommend. Not a fan of it at all. Let me have a look here. So, and we're getting more fireworks still. It's like, I feel like Dad's Army with all these explosions around. But I'm getting off track. Next one. Now, these next two are 2 movies that I got from Imprint. Imprint sent them to me, and well, I'm really grateful that Imprint sends me movies to review. But, yeah, okay. Adam's asked me a question. Can a program New Year's Eve need one trashy and a classic? Maybe go with the stuff that I've did. Thank God It's Friday with Jeff Goldblum, and Get Crazy's at one. And we can also do something like, you can always try Poseidon Adventure. So there's a few possibilities for you. Boomer Doug's here. Late to the party. Happy New Year. My 3rd year with you guys. Thanks, Boomer Doug. And love your channel too, mate. Glad you're doing some stuff and learning the game, because it is a learning curve for us all. It's a constant learning curve. Oh, big fireworks going in there. Yeah, it's like doing YouTube like this, and I'll let people know. You know those Wheel of Death things they have where the motorcycles go round and round inside, basically horizontally, inside a big wheel. YouTube's like that. You can't go too fast, you can't go too slow. You got to keep control of it. You're working out a whole bunch of variables in your head all the time, and you've got to pay attention all the time. YouTube's like that. And even if you're starting out down the bottom of that circle and riding your motorbike around it, you've got to do that carefully, and there's an incredible learning curve to it. So Boomer Doug's got a fairly new channel, and people should subscribe to that one. Yeah, there's a lot to learn, and it's constantly changing, and it's constantly good fun to do. But there's as much that's not about movies you do with the YouTube channel as there is about movies. Boomer Doug says, I know it does my head in, but it's so much fun. Absolutely. Dick says, it's like the 360-degree camera rotations around the group of heroes in the film while they stand still looking heroic. Movie making paid by numbers. That was good, Dick, the first time they did it in Avengers. But it's now become a cliche and it's overused. Shelley Winters is climbing the Christmas tree, says Ben, and he's obviously watching Poseidon Adventure. Yeah, Poseidon Adventure is good. There have been 2 remakes of Poseidon Adventure which have been totally shit. But that original one, getting in Gene Hackman just after he did French Connection to play that defrocked priest in that one was a really good piece of casting too. Raphael says, Sydney's fireworks are spectacular. Well done, Sydney. They do it every year. Melbourne's fireworks apparently this year combined lasers and drones as well. So they're phasing out of fireworks and starting to look at other technologies to do those displays. Okay, Damien says, which imprint titles? Yeah, middle-aged Google says, YouTube's not about instant success. Just ask me. I'm still waiting for this success. Heather says, Priscilla tweeted this. It's a great New Year's Eve movie. I'll tell you a Priscilla story after I finish this, Heather, if you remind me. Imprint films. Green Ice. It's a British adventure film starring Ryan O'Neill. I never understood why Ryan O'Neill had a career. But it's a caper movie with Ryan O'Neill and Archer, who's a rock-hard Scientologist now. Her son's one of those Scientologists that goes out and screams at people who criticize Scientology. Omar Sharif, John Larroquette's in it as well. It's just deeply ordinary and doesn't have an actor in it, apart from possibly Omar Sharif, who's any good at all. It's a caper film from the 7th, and this is 1981. But there are better ones of its sort. Things like 11 Harrow House is brilliant, with a deadpan voiceover by Charles Grodin. But Green Ice, I know Imprint had to put out a whole bunch of stuff, and they've got to keep churning month to month. But Green Ice is one of the least interesting movies Imprint put out. And I watched that this year, and I was disappointed by it. The other one, which was an Imprint film, came out in the same month as Green Ice, is Ravagers, a science fiction action post-apocalyptic thing, which has Richard Harris, Ernest Borgnine, Art Carney, Anne Turkel, Anthony James is in there. Anthony James is always good value. Woody Strode's in there. Seymour Cassell. It's just a by-the-numbers post-apocalyptic. We've got to go from A to B and try to find civilization again, blah, blah, blah. It's really bad. And Richard Harris just isn't making any effort on there. Friday says, very boring but nice balloons. Ben said, I thought Ryan O'Neill was terrific in Driver. Paperman, what's up, Doc and Barry Lyndon? Yeah, I'm less impressed with him than you are, but I can respect those choices. But Ravagers, if you're going to watch a post-apocalyptic movie, that's not the one to watch. And Imprint have done some great things this year as well, but that definitely wasn't one of them. Now I'm going to take a sip before I go to the next bad movie I saw this year. Got 2 more bottles of water, so I'm stocked up. Saw this one at the Sun Cinema in Yarraville. Dystopian action comedy, it says here. Boy Kills World, which stars Bill Skarsgård, Michelle Dockery, Famke Janssen's in there as well. It's this weird thing about a boy living in a dystopian city who's basically raised by a martial arts guy, and the bad guys who run the city have made him deaf and unable to speak. And he has this voiceover in his head, what he thinks his voice would sound like. And the person they get to do that voice in his head is H. John Benjamin, who plays Archer in Archer. And he does an Archer voice as the internal monologue of this character played by Bill Skarsgård. It's got lots of fighting in it. It's got lots of pew-pew and punching kicks. It's got Shalto Copley and Yayan Ruhian, who has been in a whole bunch of very good Indonesian martial arts movies. But it's really bad. I don't like it at all. That voiceover kills it because it makes it sound like a cartoon. Janice says, great caper film. Happy New Year with Lino Ventura, French from the mid-70s. Lino Ventura is great. I've seen him in so many good films. Love Lino Ventura. Middle-aged Giggle says, H. John Benjamin also played Bob Belcher. But yeah, Boy Kills World is just, were these people totally fug-drucked when they made it or what? Didn't like it at all. And it was very disappointing that I went and saw that. And I don't recommend it. It's probably on a streaming service somewhere. And if you're bored and can't find anything else, you may watch it, but you'll probably regret it if you do. Change of water bottle. I always stock up for the live streams now. Oddly enough, when I'm doing my driving vlogs, I always forget to bring a water bottle with me and end up all parched. So I saw that. Then I saw Argyle, the movie with Bryce Dallas Howard and Henry Cavill and Sam Rockwell and Bryan Cranston. Catherine O'Hara's in there, Dua Lipa, John Cena, Samuel L. Jackson. This one I'm kind of semi-hateful towards. It was directed by Matthew Vaughn, who's done some interesting films, including Layer Cake and Kick-Ass and things like that. But this one, it's all over the place as far as the plot's concerned. And it's got one of those post-credit sequences that makes no sense. It looks pretty. The action scenes are done in an interestingly pretty way. But it's like, what? When you're watching it. It's on streaming services at the moment. And I like Henry Cavill. I even like Bryce Dallas Howard, even though she's a Nepo baby. And Sam Rockwell is pulling more than his weight in this movie. Yeah, Bented, Argyle was just meh. Money Train for a New Year's Eve heist movie. Okay, fine, thank you. But yeah, Argyle looks pretty, but it's also a kind of in the same universe as the Kingsman movies that Matthew Vaughn made, which is a little bit unexpected. But I think it was one of those movies where you get really pissed off with it because you think they had tweaked a few things here, it would have been a lot better. And that's one of the things that pisses me off with a lot of these movies. You can see the path to making it a good film, and they just didn't go down that path. And that becomes a big frustration for me as an audience member. So I saw Argyle. The next one is a 2022 zombie comedy written by Michel Hazanavicius, who did the OSS 117 movies with Jean Dujardin, amongst other things. And it's a French remake of a 2017 Japanese movie called One Cut of the Dead, which is all shot in one cut. It's got a pretty good cast in it. Romain Duris, who was in the recent Three Musketeers movie. Berenice Bejo, who was in The Actor. Who's the actor? With Jean Dujardin, the one that won the Oscar. Let me just check. I'm going blank because it's late in the day. Let's have a look here. Sorry about this. The Artist. But it's basically a cheap remake of a better Japanese film, and it never needed to be remade because they did the same thing that the Japanese version did. I picked this one up dead cheap from JB Hi-Fi. I think I got paid $5 for it. Yeah, Benton, it was The Artist. But what Final Cut is so deeply ordinary and doesn't do it with as much panache as the original version, One Cut of the Dead. It's actually got Matilda Lutz in it, who was in one of the best movies I saw this year, Revenge. Matilda Lutz is in this one. And Matilda Lutz is the young woman in the movie that Coralie Fargett made before she made The Substance. So she's good as an actress, but no. DD says, films like this are reason to have a physical media collection, so I don't resort to watching them when I get bored. I do it anyway because I'm a benighted soul. Next one's also a Netflix movie because it is. It's called Atlas. It's an AI movie set in the year 2043. It stars Jennifer Lopez, Simu Liu, who's making all of these kind of mid-budget Netflix movies. I think he's got a contract with them. Sterling K. Brown and Mark Strong. Yeah, it's basically a whole bunch of mechs and a whole bunch of AI and a whole bunch of alien planets, and um, Jennifer Lopez playing an AI expert who ends up in a mech and she doesn't like mechs. It's just all over the bloody place and it's horrible, and I don't want to think about it anymore. But it says, after the substance, I need to catch up with Revenge. You do. It is a very lean movie, pared down, but it punches so bloody hard. Coralie Fargett's probably the director who I discovered this year, whom I most admire. Carol, thank you for the 10 quid, which is like $1,200 Australian, I think. Really appreciate that, you and Dick sending that. Yeah, but Atlas, I steer away from it the way you would a swollen sandwich in a garage. Yeah, it's like Adam says the Brutalist sounds good, sort of a remake of the Fountainhead, but with a migrant, aren't you? Yeah, I'm kind of, even though I don't particularly like the people in it, the Brutalist sounds kind of interesting. Carol says, sent you some pennies to get treats for Luna and Jill, as ours didn't get through. Oh, you guys are sweet. Thank you so much. But yeah, so avoid Atlas if you possibly can, and you know you can. Next one I saw in the cinema again. Joker Folie à Deux. I've talked about this on the channel. Todd Phillips' Joker sequel, where you get Lady Gaga in, but you don't let her sing in tune. You get her to sing out of tune for most of the movie. You do musical sequences in the film that are cack-handed and ordinary. You get long courtroom scenes. You waste a good actor like Brendan Gleeson, who has 2 moments in it, which really you think, I want more of that character. There's a little bit where Brendan Gleeson's character, he plays a prison guard in this, starts singing in a choir, and he's got a good singing voice. You can tell he's passionate about singing, but he doesn't get any agency in this movie. Joker Folie à Deux is just basically Todd Phillips thumbing his nose at the fan base for the first film. I wasn't particularly a fan of the first film, but I've got a real problem with a movie creator who disrespects his audience because he can. And that's the problem I got with that. James says the Joker sequel just sounds misbegotten. I think it is. I think it's just basically a movie maker pissing on the audience from a great height. Middle-aged Geeko says Luna's under my desk and Jill is hiding somewhere in the room as well. I'm glad they got some support. Angel says, have to go for a sec to make sure the cats are okay. I'll be back in 10 minutes. That's fine. Yeah, Damien didn't like the first Joker movie. I wasn't that big a fan of it. I want to see the new Superman movie while we're talking about DC IPs. Got a bit of faith in James Gunn, who once replied to a tweet I sent him back before he really hit big. I think he knows what he's doing, and his take on Superman is going to be an interesting reboot for it. I saw the teaser trailer with Crypto, the Superdog, and I'm there for that kind of shit. But Bandad said, yes, they'd earn $1 billion at the box office. This is the Medellin cartel argument for movies. Movies that make a lot of money, people think are good because they made a lot of money. Cocaine smuggling makes a lot of money, but I don't think it's a good thing. Movies that make a lot of money, there are a number of them. Look at the Avatar films. They're a really good example. I'll tell you why in a second. The Avatar film has made all the money in the world, but they've got no cultural impact. And